to explain to you how you go about doing the calculating of the least squares regression line using the applets. On your homework for lesson 2.6 and 2.7, because I combined those homeworks together, you're going to do one of each. You're going to do one using the applets, and you're going to do one doing it by hand, just with calculators. So when you go to the statistics applet, and I am kind of following the tech corner on page 139 in your textbooks, this kind of tells you how to use the technology and use the applets to do what you're trying to figure out. So when you go to the applets webpage, you're going to scroll down to where it says 2 categorical variables. When you click on that, this is what comes up. Oh, not categorical, sorry, 2 quantitative variables. This is what comes up. And you are asked to name what the explanatory variable is and what the response variable is. So in our lesson, page 139 of lesson 2.6, they are showing data for the price of Ford F-150s based upon the miles that they have been driven. So if you were buying like a used car. So the explanatory variable would be the miles driven, because it explains why the price is the way it is, okay? So you have to list all the data in here. So I've done that already here. And so I listed that the explanatory is miles driven, the response is the price, response variable, and then I listed all the data. A couple things about the data. The data in this particular set of survey or set of sample is in the thousands. So there's commas in the actual data. But it says right here, the observations must be separated by commas or spaces. If you're going to use commas to separate the data, I would recommend not using commas in the data values. So like this first number here is actually 70,583. But I didn't put the comma in 70,583 because I was going to put the commas at the end. Now, if you want to use commas in the numbers, then you would just want to not use commas here and use a space instead, okay? Now, the second thing to keep in mind is that you can't miss any data. So, and you have to keep the individuals in the same order. So, for example, for a car that was driven 70,583 miles, the price of the car was $21,994. Those have to be entered together. Now, rather than going up, down, up, down, up, down, I just went through and I just listed all of the miles driven. Then I went back to the list and in the same order did all of the prices. Now, if you accidentally skip one, it'll give you this message. The number of observations in each group must be the same. I actually did this twice now, and both times I missed something. So it's nice that it kind of warns me and I can go back and fix it. So once you get the data values entered in, you're going to click Begin Analysis, and then a scatter plot is going to come up. This is just the scatter plot of the data. If you want to be able to calculate the least squares regression model, you're going to need to come down here to where it says Regression Models and click this. Now it took the scatter plot up here and it put in the line of least squares line of regression, okay? Now this residual we're going to talk about in the next lesson, but for right now, let's just focus on this. So the other thing, if you scroll down, that pops up underneath regression models now is the equation, the number of values, and then there's an S and an R squared. The R squared we'll talk about later, but the S represents the standard deviation of the prices, okay? So how far off do the prices vary, okay? How far off do the prices vary? Okay, so right here is what you're being asked to find. You're being asked to find the least squares equation. So this is the least squares equation. So you would just write that down and copy it. And that's how you'll be able to kind of do it with the technology. I'm going to do a second video in a few minutes where I do the lesson app. And the lesson app is actually going to show you how to do it by hand. The point here is when we write the least squares regression line, we want to make sure that we have a slope and we want to make sure that we have a y-intercept. And so we will talk about that in just a few minutes.